So today I wanted to really briefly go over one of the better features of ZBrush 2021. I've already got a project that I needed it for, and it's a figure model for a particular comic character. But I was fully prepared to do all of these bits of clothing in the way I'm used to doing them. I would model this stuff by hand, just using reference that I would pick up about. I'd look up a reference for a long jacket of some kind. You can see that here. Everything like the shoes and the hands and stuff just come from some of the stock human model that you can get under the ZBrush tools. If I could find it, tool. Everything's based on this gentleman here, the average male. It's a really good place to start when you're just doing, sort of heroic figures, male figures in particular. But this is a somewhat anime-inspired character, so the clothing didn't necessarily need to be completely realistic. Like you can tell, his proportions, are super heroic. He actually has quite a bit of a head of hair, nice long hair. But I'm going to do something different with the hair, which is why I initially had it hidden. But even the hair is going to be using dynamics, and you can see that these are. I'm going to select the jacket here, or the duster. These are standard subdivisions. I have the dynamic subdiv on right now. This particular layer doesn't have any thickness on it yet, and I've already put thickness on a few of the things. That's just something I do last, since this particular model is going to be 3D printed at some point. I'm just going to leave these empty until I'm finished sculpting, and maybe I'll figure out how I'm going to handle the thickness of the objects. But I wanted to show you, I'm going to duplicate this so I don't kind of mess up my work. Go to solo. So I'm going to show you this new dynamics tab up here for ZBrush 2021. Really useful stuff when you're just doing simple folds on cloth. And I'm just going to isolate this to isolate the dynamics and erase kind of what I did. So I would have started out with something like that. Yeah, all right. And the dynamic brushes come in a couple of different varieties. They have various functions, but I found that one of these works about as good as you can model this stuff on your own. Now, a couple of the settings here are pretty important, because what you've got to do before all of this. See, we've already got kind of a jacket folds a look right there. The things you have to do to get this to work. I had this masked, initially. Let me go back a couple of steps. I had this, unmasked, rather. The entire rest of the jacket is masked. A lot of the dynamics will work whether or not. I'm going to go over these very briefly. Well, the dynamics work on masked if I was masking the object, or on brushed, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to isolate everything to this area, protect the rest of the jacket from being simulated. Liquify, that gives you the opportunity to use these brushes in a particular way, and they kind of, like the name implies, everything is sort of moving, and subject to dynamics. The various options here, these are similar to the brush functions, like the inflate, brush, deflate, and the opposite, expand. Not entirely clear how this functions differently from inflate, but they do work together. It's sort of like when you actually see it working, it gives the surfaces additional volume instead of sort of blowing them up. I guess that's the difference, because you see the effect here. They're much larger. Now, if I switch the contract, you can see the overall effect by the time you're done, with that brush stroke. Almost the entire, almost the entire volume has been kind of sucked through. But I'm going to leave that there to show you one of the more important aspects of using this. I have a basic body on a separate layer already set up. And when I activate the dynamics, you see I had everything visible at that one point. You're going to need to actually recalculate or enable your collision volume to look at visible layers when you're doing these things, so that you have, right now it's off. So that layer's off, but it's still colliding with that underlying object because it was already visible. But when the collision volume was established, now you can change this by making something visible and recalculating it, or if you really want to, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but it is fun doing this. Now that simulation can be saved and played back, over the over different programs if you can learn how to export the MDDs. If you're a Lightwave user, you'll recognize that format. But the format currently that's used to record that animation so that you can play it back in 3D programs is the MDD format. I'm almost positive they're going to either implement an Alembic implementation or something, because I've already, from the first day of release, they said, what's an MDD? All the users were saying, well, how do you use MDDs? Who loads MDDs? I saw at least one user on Twitter immediately, start searching the internet for MDD formats and plugins and loaders. But that's what I wanted to show you today real quick. It's been really helpful for getting this particular character kind of set up and camera ready. I'm going to be 3D printing this for a friend of mine. So keep an eye out for that project, and I'll talk to you next time.